Hello, hello, hello. I will get this. I think I'm going to stop there. This frustrates the life out of me every time. I've cut that corner off. I still haven't got it. Okay, I'm going to stop there or I'll be fiddling with that for goodness knows how long. I hope you can hear me because I'm trying something a bit different today. I've got some earbuds in to record with, and to me it sounds like I'm just echoing in my own head. So I hope you can hear me. I've actually been sitting out here for the last nearly 3 hours watching YouTube videos and debating whether I'm going to actually record today, because I think I might be coming down with the flu. I'm not feeling great at all. Anyway, I wanted to get on and try and do a bit of a recording today for you guys because I've got my therapy sessions tomorrow, and usually after that I'm hammered. I still haven't recovered from last week, and I'm finding the days are getting harder and harder at the moment, and they keep telling me to push through, give it a month. Man, I hope it gets better because I'm smashed. Anyway, if you'd seen my last video or last few videos, I did a series of 3 last week because I just kept stuffing up. I spilled coffee on my work, then I ended up with Coke on my work, and then I did something else and I had to go and wash my stuff, and anyway, that was then. So today I'm trying to be a bit more prepared. I wanted to start off by showing you my sister got back. My sister and her family have been in Europe, and she bought me this lovely tea towel from Manchester with bees on it. I love bees. I collect things with bees these days. And a little Manchester bee pin. So I thought they were very lovely. So I wanted to share that with you. I'm not game enough to take the tea towel out of the bag because I don't want to wreck it. I have spent a lot of today washing and sorting more linens. I've been soaking them over the weekend. I've been pressing and starching and organising, so I've got quite a few out here. I've been trying to get my head around getting a needle book together. I still haven't done it. I've learned my lesson from last week, spilling the coffee. I've got this, excuse me, I'm hiccuping. I do this every time I start recording. I get the hiccups. I don't know if it's a nervous thing or what, but man. So I bought this handmade case a couple of months ago from the second-hand shop, and I'm assuming it was probably designed for quilt blocks, to put your quilt blocks in as you're working on them. Well, it says here a quilting project bag. What did I think I paid $10 for it, but to me it was worth it. It's a bit rustic. It's not square, but it saves me the time and the effort of trying to make it when I just don't have time at the moment. Just look at that hexie to see if it lifts at all to do anything. It doesn't, but that's okay. So I've been keeping my work in here. I washed this is my stitch along piece for those of you who have been following the stitch along. I haven't done any more on it since I last saw you. I've been flat out, absolutely flat out. So it's clean though. I've given it a clean, and I've been working on this pincushion that I'm trying to do. That's been inspired by Kate, of Kate in the Nest. And I've just started with this tiny little one to start with, to see if I could actually do it. I'm not convinced still that this is going to work because I've cut the I've stitched the border so tight it's stretched the wool, as you can see, the wool fabric. So I ended that off because I came to the end of the thread. Now what I want to do today is get this stuffed, and this is the wool I cut up. So if you'd have seen last week, I traced around the wool blanketing. Some of the wool I did is not blanketing, but some of the wool, and cut around them. I did a handful to do some of these pin cushions. Whether I'll do them all or not, I don't know. So these bits here on the outside that I've cut off, the scrap pieces, I've cut up here into little bits, and I'm going to use those. The plan is to use those to stuff the pin cushion. So that's what I'm up to. And you might, if you're wondering why I'm using this wool and why I chopped it up so small, I always try to stuff my pin cushions with wool or crushed walnut. The wool helps keep the pins from rusting. Now sometimes I'll just use I'll just grab a piece that's underneath me here. Sometimes I'll just use wool off the sheep. This is fin. I don't want to use the fin to stuff with because I only have a little bit of it. I've got bags of merino. I probably won't use the alpaca. I've got alpaca. Probably won't use alpaca because the alpaca doesn't have the lanolin like wool does. But then in saying that, this blanketing doesn't have the lanolin either. But it's still supposed to be a better option for our pins and needles than polyester. So, and the reason I've chopped this up so small is because if I just stuck in wads of cut off fabric or strips of fabric, the pin cushion will be quite lumpy, and I don't want a lumpy pin cushion if I can help it. So this is essentially acting as little beads, I guess, little woolen beads. And I'm trying to make sure I've got that nice and firmly stuffed in there. It's a little bit frustrating. I didn't ask how you all are doing today. I like to start with my friend's greeting. She often greets people by asking, have you slept? Have you eaten? Are you well? I like that greeting. So I do hope you are all well today. I hope you had a lovely weekend and you're nice and rested. Unlike me at the moment, I feel like I've been hit by a freight train, I swear, my goodness. So, it's getting nice and firm. I still need a bit more, I think. I'm getting a bit impatient, can you tell? I'm just so tired. I wanted to start the Great Aussie Bird Count today. I was going to do it from my own garden, but I haven't even had the strength to go out and sit out and watch for 20 minutes. I know what's been here today though, out the front, so potentially I could do the count still. Because I think today's the first day. I hope today's the first day, or I've missed a day. Okay, we're getting pretty close here. Might stop at that, I think. Right, now what I need to do is thread my needle again. Some more of this cotton that I've been doing the edging with. And I've just been using this Anchor soft embroidery cotton for something a bit different. I've only got this one skein. I bought it at the second-hand shop recently. Goodness me. Okay. Where did I put? Here's my needle book. This needle book, interestingly enough, this little felt one, I made this when my son was only about, I can't remember if he was 3 or 5 now, but he cut out all these shapes for me and told me where he wanted everything to go. You can see the leaves are pretty well just squares. And he did remarkably well with the circles. I did trace around them for him. And then I stitched the stems in and stitched it together, but he told me where he thought everything should go. So this poor little needle case is quite a precious little one that I have. Right, back to the thread. This is something I haven't shown you yet, I don't think. If you can't thread your needle, you can needle your thread. So what I do is squeeze the tip, depending on what you're using. If I'm using wool, I usually fold it over and squeeze it. But this is cotton, so I'm not going to fold it. And then you can just work your needle onto your thread. So you needle your thread instead of thread your needle. I'll show that properly one day. It's a bit difficult with this stuff. So back to our little pincushion, and the way I've been doing this is pretty much, I'm just going to hide the tail in here. I don't want to use knots if I don't have to. It's stiff, which is probably good. Okay. So this is the back of my work. I'm just hiding that tail in there, and I'm coming back to the front, and I'm going to go back into that, what do you call it, blanket stitch loop, and I'm going to start, I've been doing 3 blanket stitch loops in each blanket stitch loop, if that makes sense. Just trying to do something a bit different. I already had one in there when I finished that off, so I think I'll only put 2 in there. I don't want one to be bulkier than the others. This is where it's going to get a bit tricky holding this stuffing in. Now I'm doing my next blanket stitch. Pulling that firmly, and then again 1 blanket stitch in that previous blanket stitch. 1, 2, and I'm pulling them quite firmly. 2, 3. Next blanket stitch, and look, to be honest, I think I've mentioned in the last video, I don't even know if this will work. It's puckering quite a bit. Next blanket stitch. Oops, I missed that loop. Let's pick that up. There we go. Now, our first blanket stitch into that last blanket stitch loop. 1, Oh man, I've had dropsy today. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the video, 3, but earlier today I dropped a full cup of coffee all over my carpet. So that was helpful. Not one. Oh, sorry, blanket stitch. Now we're back to one. One, two. I thought this would be a bit quicker, this last bit. I thought I'd move around here a bit quicker than I am at the moment. She's definitely a bit unusual, that's for sure. The shape and I thought I started with 2 round pieces, but they've distorted as I've been stitching. One, 2, 3. Now I don't know, and I have mentioned this in the last video, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if this is actually a stitch. I don't think I've seen it before. If I have seen it before, I've obviously stored it in the back of my mind. But if it is a stitch, I've got no idea what it's called. I did have a quick look for fancy blanket stitches, but couldn't see this one. I'm sure someone would have come up with it by now before I have. 1, 2, 3. Now this pincushion has been inspired by Kate of Kate in the Nest and her little cupcake pincushion. And you can go and have a look at hers. I will share a link later in the description. 2, I lost count of that. Let's do one more. I think I only did 2. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, another blanket stitch. And 1, 2, 3. Now I feel like I might need a little bit more wadding stuffing in there. That was messy. I think I got more out of it than I got in it. Oh goodness. Get in there. There we go. Come on, I'll just poke that in a bit with my scissors because I can't find my poking tool thingy. Just gonna untwist my cotton. I'm just holding it out beside me to let it naturally twist back to its regular. Whoops. My pants just fell down. Hopefully I've got a tablecloth up there so no one can see. Man, I'm having a day, aren't I? Okay, blanket stitch. 1, 2, 3. I actually had the ranger turn up this morning, and I thought, oh, what have I done now? It can't be my dog. She's never outside. She never causes trouble. It wasn't my dog. He was looking for another dog. He thought I might have been holding it in my yard, but I wasn't. He was very nice. 1, 2, 3. So he actually stopped for a couple of minutes to admire my dog and have a chat to her. He told me that she was the biggest Great Dane he's ever seen in his life. I have seen bigger. I have seen at least one bigger Great Dane. And I'm pretty sure she was a female too. She was huge. I saw her in the park one day at a festival. It was in Spears Point Park. I think it was a pet festival actually. I don't remember her name, but she was a big girl. She just towered over Willow. We're nearly there. 1, 2. I tell you what, it's getting cool here today, this afternoon. Well, it's after 5 o'clock, so 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. You're getting sick of me counting yet. 3. I'm doing it more for my own benefit, to be honest. I'm struggling to keep up today. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Don't think I can fit another stitch in there, so finish that off, and then I'm just going to thread the tail through the back of the work. I should have a pair of pliers because this is really difficult to pull through. Of course, that last bit is going to get all tangled up. There we go. Try and put it into shape a bit. And you know what I've done? I've just realised I started off stitching on this side and then I finished off on that side. What a numbskull. Hopefully you won't be able to notice that. I can, but I'm not going to undo it now because I just remembered I wanted this more coloured side to be on the back. What a goose. Anyway, I'm not going to change that now. So what Kate did with hers was do some layers of vintage textile. I'm just going to my bag of cutter bits. I've got one thing in mind I wanted to try. Might leave that bit out. Don't know about you, but I find it difficult to make decisions on these. No, that's too big. What I was thinking was, and I'm sure I've already got some of those separated. Where did I put them? I know I've cut some out. I bet they're in the bottom of the basket instead. Thinking I was all ready, and I'm not. Which is probably frustrating for you guys. Where did I put them? Huh. I think I found them. Let's have a look. Okay. Now what I was thinking was, oh, don't tell me they're not in there. Thinking something like that, but then I think that's too big really. I did have a smaller one. Here we go. That's not a bad size for that one. I think I want to keep the three-dimensional one for something else, this one. So that one's not a bad size, I don't think. That one's too big. Right. But then Kate had layers of textile as well, and I just can't work out how to do that. I might have to go back and have another look at how she's done it. I bet if I stitch this down, she's done that bit later. I don't know if you can tell, this has come off a larger piece that wasn't finished. Here it is. And what I tried to do, so there was two other medallions on one of these sides and that was it. There was one missing and these middle bits weren't done. So what I have tried to do when I've separated them is I've tried to tie these sides off here that I've cut off so they don't come undone. Very fiddly because there's not a lot of cotton there to play with. So I want to stitch that on with, I might use some of this. It's not quite the right colour. Looking for another needle. I need to put my glasses on. This is going to be too small. Yes, there's no way I'm going to thread that into there. This one might work though. Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't exactly look big either. Maybe it's time I start using a needle threader. Oh, that's not going to fit. Gee whiz. Now if I can't fit it in that one, there's something wrong. What did I do? Stripped it. I didn't fit it in that one. Come on. Now do you know that there are two sides to a needle? There's a front and a back. If you can't get it in one side, turn it over and try the other side, the eye of the needle, because they're actually stamped. And where the stamp pushes through the front of the eye, it's a bit more open than the other side. I'm just going to do a little anchor stitch here to hold that in place. Well, and that didn't work. I need a longer tail. Let's try again. I'm trying not to do knots. I just don't like knots if I can help it. That's stuck there now, so I might get a knot whether I want it or not. Oh man. It's very stuck. There we go. So I'm trying to leave a tail, do an anchor stitch. I'm going to do a second anchor stitch. Pull it firmly. And I'm just stitching over that loop of the crocheted bit there. There's one of my hairs in it. And it's not going to be far out enough. So by the time I stitch those down, I need to change that. Just going to snip that off instead of trying to undo it. Let's try again. Anchor stitch, another anchor stitch, and I've done it, buggered it up again. Come on, pay attention. What I will do, I want to bring this out to that edge. Let's give it another go. Okay. So I'm just stitching this on to that outer edge, just through the crocheted loop. See these loops here that have been formed? I'm just stitching that down. Now I want to do and tuck that in. And I'm going to cut that off because now I want to stitch the opposite side. So we're going to come over to this side. Make sure it looks a bit even. And again, I'm going to put the tail in. Do an anchor stitch. Another anchor stitch. And then I'm going to go through that loop. Now, I've got to be careful because I haven't exactly tied them all off very tightly. So this piece, I'm going to have to sort of catch those crocheted bits and stitch them down to make sure it doesn't come undone. So I'm not pulling that loop, if that makes sense, because the loop will just come undone. So I'm essentially just trying to stitch that down more than anything now, making sure the tails of that loop have been held. And then again, I'm going to tuck that in. Make sure I haven't got it showing on the other side. And that should hold that. Okay. Now I'm going to go in the middle here. Might do this side first because it's not sitting there. That's better. So I'm going to do this one now. Tuck my tail in. Do an anchor stitch. Bugger, pulled it too hard. Anchor stitch. Now pulling too hard. Next anchor stitch. And this is another one that I've tried to tie off, so I need to try and stitch that a bit further in. So I'm sort of just trying to catch the chain stitch to make sure that it doesn't come undone where I've tried to tie it off. And I'm going to try and tuck that tail in again. Cut that off. Now on the opposite side of that one, tuck the tail in. Oops. And we get doing a holding stitch, another holding stitch. And this one's okay, it's got the loop's been finished off. I haven't cut it, so I'm just going to stitch through that. And again, you'll notice here, this is where the previous person didn't finish that off, so I'm just going to tuck that in, I think. I don't want to cut it off and have that unravel. There we go. Now I'm just going to tuck my tail in. Just going to try and do a little invisible holding stitch there. And cut that off. Now, oops, lost my needle. Oh, I cut through all of that then. What a goose. Okay. This is just Twilly's number 20 crochet cotton. Some vintage cotton that I had. I sometimes buy that. I haven't bought any for ages because I've got a box full. So I used to buy it if I saw it at the second-hand shop cheap. Opposite, opposite. Okay. Let's try this one. Tuck the tail in. Do a holding stitch. And another holding stitch. Now again, there's a bit I've tied off, so I need to try and just tucking that over, that tied off edge over, so it's a bit tidier. And just put that needle through the back of my thumb then. Stitching, stitching. Okay, don't yell please. Stitching, stitching, stitching. Again, trying to hold that opened edge down. Not sure if I like that, how visible that white stitch is on there. Okay, I'm going to hide my tail again. Try and do an invisible little holding stitch to hold that in place. And then I'll cut it off. Now the opposite side I think is this one. Again, hide my tail. Do a holding stitch. Another holding stitch. And then work through that loop. And stitch it down. I hope you can still see because the light's fading very quickly. It's become quite overcast. Hello. Hello. I didn't know you guys could comment while I was on here. Thanks for joining me. I hope I'm not too boring stitching this piece down. Again, now time to just hide that tail. Try and do a little hidden holding stitch. And in fact, I could probably keep going around to this next one. Chuck that stitch in there. And off we go. Just grabbing that loop again. And stitching this side down. I should only have one to go after this, I think. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Kate did some beautiful layers of vintage textiles on top of hers, and I just can't at this stage. I'm struggling to get my head around that, so might finish this off when we get to this end bit. And oh, thank you. Well, these have already been crocheted, and I'm just stitching them onto some wool to make a little pincushion. I hope, if it works. And again, I'm just going to tuck that tail in. Try and do a hidden holding stitch, which is getting difficult to do because it's getting thick. It's building up. And I haven't been checking the back. I hope I don't have bits exposed. No, I don't, thank goodness. Now, there's one left over here. Now the other thing I'm not sure about is whether I'm going to do a holding in the middle, holding stitch, and draw that in. I haven't decided yet. I might, because then it will sit more flat, although it seems to be sitting okay without doing that. So we might not need to. Again, hiding our tail, couple of holding stitches, 1, 2, and this is another one that I've tried to tie off, so we need to try and catch that down a bit lower. To make sure I don't pull that open. I'm in Australia. Where are you from? I'm in New South Wales, Australia. About half an hour south of Newcastle. Or I think it's about an hour and a half's drive north of Sydney. Little holding stitch again, and there we go. So we've sewn that onto our wool piece. I have got a bit at the back, I might have to fix that later. And see a stitch at the back there that I don't want. Right, So now I don't know whether to, I might wait and see if I add something else. I could add a Suffolk puff. Just don't know. It's not too bad, I guess. Oh, okay, North Africa. Wow. Algeria in North Africa. I have been to the African continent, but not down that far. I've been to Egypt. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm not convinced that that Suffolk puff will work. It's not too bad, I guess. I'm just thinking about how effective it will be to stick your pins and needles in. But I might leave it at that for today because I have been talking to you for nearly an hour and the light is fading. So I'll leave it there for now. I'll go and have another look at how Kate's finished her little cupcake pincushion off. And I'll come back and show you next time. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed watching. I hope you may have learned something or you've been inspired to have a go at something yourself. Thank you again and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Thank you.